Hey guys, I've missed seeing all of you over the last few weeks on Sunday morning. And one of the things I always miss are our stick figure lessons. Those are always kind of fun and goofy, and I always enjoy doing those. So I thought today I would make up a short stick figure lesson for you. Hope you enjoy it. It comes from 1 Kings chapter 17, and it's all about trust today. In this story, we meet a woman who has to make a decision about trust. This happens during the reign of King Ahab, who was a particularly evil king. In fact, in our first slide, we see in our stick figure lesson, Ahab is saying, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the most evil king of all?" And of course, it's Ahab. Ahab was probably he was actually the most evil king in Israel up to that point. One of the reasons he was so evil is he had married a woman named Jezebel. Now, everybody's heard about Jezebel. Jezebel's name is always synonymous with evil. Which makes you wonder, why would Ahab even marry someone so bad, so evil? Well, Jezebel was from a nation called Sidon. Sidon was a very strong nation back in those days. And as we've talked about in past lessons, many times kings would marry women from strong nations to form an alliance to make their nation even stronger. And that's what Ahab was doing. He wanted to make Israel politically stronger, which worked. It did help. The problem was it was a disaster spiritually for them. And you can see from our next slide that Ahab thinks he's getting stronger, got those big muscles, because he's married to Jezebel. And Jezebel saying, "Yeah, baby." And so things are going really well as far as Ahab is concerned. The problem with Jezebel is that not only was she evil, but she also worshipped a idol named Baal. Now in the South, a lot of times we call him Baal. Some people call him Baal. It doesn't matter what you call him. He was just a god who was false. And Jezebel brought the worship of this false god into Israel. And she encouraged the worship of Baal among all the Israelites. In fact, she actually hated the worship of the God of Israel. She hated it so much that she did everything she could to try to kill every last prophet of God that was in Israel. She was not successful in this, but she killed a bunch of them. And God was so unhappy with her about this and Ahab for letting this happen that he sent his prophet Elijah to talk to Ahab. And he told Elijah to tell Ahab, "You go tell him I'm so unhappy with what's going on here that I'm going to stop it from raining for a long time in Israel." And you know, the funny thing about this is that Baal was supposed to be the god of rain. And so basically what God was doing was challenging Baal. And he was saying, "All right, I'm going to stop it from raining. Let's see if your god Baal can do anything about it." So this is basically a direct challenge to the god of Jezebel. As soon as Elijah told Ahab this, God knew that Elijah was going to be in danger because he knew that Jezebel would not like this and that Ahab and Jezebel would try to kill him. So he told Elijah, he said, you need to go hide somewhere. So he sent him to a brook, which was not far from the Jordan River. And during the time he was hiding there, God fed Elijah and took care of him. But the famine went on so long, it didn't rain for such a long time, things started to dry up. And the brook that Elijah was hiding by dried up. And so God told him, "I want you to go to Zarephath and hide there." That's kind of funny because Zarephath is actually located in Jezebel's home country. It's kind of ironic that he would have her hide in Jezebel's own home country. So he goes to Zarephath, and God says, when you get there, you're going to see a widow, and she can help you. And sure enough, when he gets to Zarephath, he meets a widow, and she's on the ground picking up sticks, ready to build a fire, because she's going to cook the very last bit of food she has for her and her son, and they're going to die. Now, the famine had gotten so bad that food was getting scarce. And always in times like this, the people that are the most desperate are those who are the most defenseless. And some of the most defenseless people in those days were widows. And this woman was down to her last bit of food. She had no way of expecting to get any more. And her idea was to cook what was left, eat it, and then they were going to die. It was during this time that Elijah walks up and he speaks to her and he says, "Would you give me something to drink, some water?" Well, apparently she's a pretty compassionate woman, and she says, "Of course." And she gets him she's going to give him some water. But before she can do that, then Elijah says, "Oh, and would you take some of that flour and oil you have and make me a small cake of bread?" And then the woman says, "Well, I was just about to make what's left. I hardly have anything. And I was going to make what was left for me and my son, and we were going to die. I don't have enough left for you." And Elijah says, "You go ahead and make me a cake of bread. And I promise you that the God of Israel has told me that he will never let you run out of food again." Well, the woman has a decision to make. Is she going to trust this man that she's never met in her life? He's saying that he knows the God of Israel, and the God of Israel is going to take care of her. Can she trust this? Most of us would probably not trust that. But for some reason, she decides to trust him. And so she makes his cake of bread and gives it to him. And as soon as she realizes that she's used the last bit of oil and flour, she looks back in the containers, and lo and behold, it's been replenished. And this happens every single day for a long time. As long as the famine's going on, she uses up her last bit of flour and oil, and more of it shows up, and she's amazed. She's astonished. Of course, Elijah is not, because he knows that the God of Israel is a true God, and he's capable of doing those things. But she trusted Elijah and trusted God, and she was taken care of. Some time went by, and eventually the woman's son got very sick, and he got worse and worse every day, and he finally died. And she got very frustrated. She forgot all about what Elijah and God had done for her, and she looked at Elijah and pointed to him in the face and said, "You have come here to expose my sin by killing my son." She's really angry. She's forgotten all about the things that God has done for her. All she can think about is her loss. And Elijah says, "Let me have your son." And so he takes the dead boy and he prays over him. And he asks God to raise him from the dead. And God does. As soon as he raises from the dead, of course, the woman's excited. She's thrilled. She's calling a miracle, of course. And she sees that God has always been there. The point of all this is that trust is not always easy. It certainly wasn't easy for this widow from Zarephath. And sometimes when things go badly for us, it's easy to feel that we're all alone and that no one is there to help us. The widow thought that the end of her life was near, but unknown to her, God had other plans. All she had to do was to trust. When things are going bad, it's always good to remember stories like this one that remind us that even when it might not look like it, God is in our midst and he's working on our behalf. All he asks is that we trust him. I hope that over the next few weeks, as we go through this very difficult time, that you trust in God and that you look around you and you see his hand working all around you. I'm convinced that God is present in our lives during this time. And if we look hard enough and trust well enough, we'll see his hand in so many ways. Hope you have a great week, and I hope to see you again very soon. I'll be praying for all of you over the next few weeks.